not to?
Try not to look at
Okay.
him.
I know I'm
Okay.
not just that handsome, but try to.
Yeah, I know. He's just handsome. So.
I can't see you. What'd you say?
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.
Funny. All right, are we rolling on this one?
We are. Hold on one. Go for it. Rolling on 2.
Excellent. So how are you doing?
Good. Very good. Thank
Not
you.
Too hot?
Not too hot.
Not yet. Okay. So the first question is, why did you join the Marines and how?
Well, that one I thought about a little bit, and originally I grew up actually in Longview, Washington, and Longview, Washington is a lumber company city, you know, lumber mills and whatever, and everybody you knew was, you know, pulling plywood or doing this or doing that, and in my mind, that's not what I wanted to do for the rest of my life. And I graduated in '52, and 1953 I just decided, you know, I'm going to join the Marine Corps. And really, I think if to answer the question, why did I? Because I could see if I stayed where I was, and even if you go to college, you're still in that mode, and I just didn't want to really be there. So, but it was a good change.
Okay. And here's that question. How did you end up on the Curtis?
Well, that's the one that we've discussed a little bit previously, and that's a difficult one to say. And as I indicated, I think if you speculate on the why and you look back, from what the officer said, Jim Brannaman, every one of us were handpicked, and I do recall being interviewed and so forth. So if you go the back way and you say, okay, you joined the Marine Corps, what did you do from there to here that generated the interest of the Curtis group, whoever they may be? So you go back and you look at each activity and you say, well, maybe that was part of it. I did graduate honor platoon, platoon 160, as I know others did that are on the Curtis within their groups. I'd mentioned to you about this is kind of a dumb story, but in Camp Merriweather, or Camp, the rifle range, which is just right up the street here, up 5, Camp Matthews, which is a rifle range where you do your getting your qualifications and so forth. I ended up with some real difficult migraine headaches, and right at the very day that we were doing the rifle tests or the final qualifications, I had a headache that I almost passed out at breakfast, standing in line for chow. And I got through that, went out in the range. I was just kind of limp as a lily, but my head was just throbbing, and got through the course, got up, got in formation, and I passed out. And I was gone for in the hospital for 2 days. And as it turned out, the migraines went away, and as I mentioned, and this is kind of a dumb parallel, but it's like, well, okay, I know my DI was a sergeant was his name, and he told me once, after the graduation, that one of the reasons that he selected me as that honor platoon was because I hung in there until, you know, I went as far as I could. So was that part of it that Brannaman or whomever looked at? I mean, you just take those little pieces, so it's very difficult to say how you ended up on the Curtiss. What were the qualifications? Was it being 6 foot tall? I wouldn't have made it, you know. So I can't really, I don't know as any of us could really pin that down. You'd have to go from the top down to ask that question.
So the first day, like right before you got on the Curtiss, oh, and when you got on it, kind of, what did you do? What was your, how did you feel? And
Well, it was kind of a good feeling. You know, the typical still, you know, we're getting on a ship with a bunch of swabbies and us jarheads and all of that good stuff, and the, you know, knowing you were going to be out and sailing around, you didn't relate to or really know the magnitude of why you were there. But when I was either immediately on the ship or maybe when I was still in sea school, and I had to have been after I was selected to go on the ship, I was put in the Naval Officers Training School over at NTC, and I was there for approximately 2 weeks, as I recall, to become an instructor for the Marine group on the ship. So my function when I got on the ship was instructing. And what was I instructing? It was really just keeping, in my log again in there, you'll find my little black book of all my notes and whatever. And, you know, a lot of it was just reiterating what we had learned in boot camp, you know, be it first aid, be it, you know, how to rip a M2 apart or whatever. So, you know, that was one of my main functions on the ship. And my feelings on the ship, it was just a good life. That's all I can say. It was a great bunch of people to be with, and you had all the amenities. You had the, you know, the food, the movies. You had the you can go shopping, as I say. I bought my camera there and other things. So I you know, from initial reaction going on, it was different. I'd never been on a ship before, but it was nothing that other than I really looked forward to it, you know, once you were there.
Gotcha. So, so do you have any stories on the ship? A little more fun stories?
Fun stories?
Anything that you guys did? Play pranks on each other? Just
Oh, you always did that. Yeah, yeah. Oh, there's, you know, one of the things that we did a lot of time, played a lot of poker, and, you know, got a lot of pictures of that, you know. And one of the stories that I'll convey was that Bob McKenzie was one of the players all the time, and a tech sergeant, Jim Boyle, was the other, and myself and others that I don't recall necessarily, but playing poker one day, you know, I had a hot hand, Jim Boyle had a hot hand, and we were back and forth, and I drained him, you know, betting back and forth, and I drained him of all his cash. And so he said, okay, I don't have anything, but I'm going to pull off my Marine Corps ring, and that's my last bet. And it was a solid silver ring with the Marine Corps gold on the front of it in a setting that was just beautiful. And at the time, you know, I won it, okay, so be it. I had that thing for, well, since 1954. And it got a little small, and I was always going to, we've never found Jim Boyle to bring him to a reunion. I was always going to give it back to him if he could give me that last $10 that he bet. So I had it enlarged, and I had it polished, and I put it on. This goes back about a year ago, and went out somewhere one morning to work, and I got to McDonald's or wherever to get my coffee, came back, lifted up my coffee, and the ring was gone. And I went back in and asked and looked around. I put an ad in the paper for it, and I could go on with the story a little bit because it's kind of interesting and all part of this, but I put an ad in the paper about, Marine Corps ring, reward, whatever. About 2 weeks later, I got a phone call from somewhere back east that said, did you lose a ring? Well, yes, I did. Well, how'd you know that? I asked him, and he said, well, I saw it in the newspaper. And he said, well, could you describe it for me? And I told him, and he said, well, I asked him, you're back there, how did you get it? And he said, well, I'm a truck driver, and I was out in Irvine, California, and I bought it from someone, and I had bought a newspaper the same day, and after I got back here, I read it, and blah, blah, blah. And I think I had a $100 reward, and he said, well, I can't, it's going to cost me to send it, and whatever. Well, it turned out to be a big sham from his end. He wanted me to send him cash or a cashier's check and, whatever. So anyway, I blew that off. But the long and the short of the story is this ring that I cringed the fact I lost it. It was so meaningful to me. So there was that. And then another thing that was kind of fun and a lot of memories for me, again, I've got pictures in the album. There was a Lieutenant Jim Dempster, second lieutenant, that he and a bunch of other officers, probably about the beginning of Aqualungs, back in the 50s, had made Aqualung tanks. They took the tanks out of the seaplanes, and the straps were parachute straps. They made all the piping and whatever, and then the actual valve was, a purchased thing. But anyway, I got involved in Aqualung over there with Jim Dempster, and I bought it from him when he left, and I still have that. And I dove for years here in San Diego and whatever with it. And then another friend of mine who, again, is in some of these pictures, I think I have the tank and we're looking at her, maybe spear guns or something, but he was one of my good friends and happened to live, and I wasn't aware of it at the time, but just across the river from me in Longview, Washington. He was in Oregon, and we were on the ship, and here we turned out to be the, best friends. So he and I clicked, and I mean, there's a long story of what happened to him, that he was ended up being a police officer in Anaheim, California, and took a nosedive over the motorcycle one time, so he went on a medical, actually retired, and then he went to work for like a Wells Fargo, where the ATM machines, where he would go around and replenish the green stuff in them and, pick up this and that, and somewhere along the way he ended up missing. They couldn't find him, and they thought that his son may have had some problems with him. turned out that they found his car burned. He was shot a few times, and they stole all this property. Well, I happened to have been the best man in his wedding, after we both got out and so forth. So, you take those friendships and relationships, and Dan Leonard, who was on the ship, we weren't real close friends on the ship. He lived here in San Diego, and again, I was from Washington. And when I got married, my wife and I moved down here to San Diego, and we were in church one day and sitting in a pew, and about 3 pews ahead of me, I saw this head back, the back of a head of some guy, and I knew immediately who it was. After 3 years looking back of heads and standing in platoons at attention, you start to relate who they are. Well, this guy, we're godparents of one of his daughters, and vice versa, they're godparents of one of our sons. And so those little relationships there have grown, all of them. And I probably got sidetracked from your question, but
no, you're fine. No, this is what we're looking for.
Yeah.
But other than the bomb, what was the most intense moment for you on the Curtis?
Other than the bomb.
Was there anything that was more intense, or
The Russian submarine.
There's so many of those things now that the submarine, when it was there, you didn't fully understand the impact of it. And, even the bomb, you didn't really fully understand the impact of it. So, and I can't speak for others, but I think an awful lot of those situations, you heard about it, but at that time, no one heard that there were fingers on the buttons, ready to blow each other up. And, we've been told through very high-end sources that, that was almost the Third World War right there. They were that close of hitting the buttons, and we didn't know it. But I think it was Bob McKenzie that has met with a lot of the people in Washington, D.C., and had met on, and maybe on a board with some Russian diplomat or person of knowledge. And somewhere along the way, the Curtis came up, and the Russian diplomat said, "Did you ever know about the submarine that we were trailing you?" And Bob said, "Yeah, did you ever know we knew it?" And it was, both of them concluded, that was a very close circumstance, but it wasn't then, to me. And now I look back and I can see it. I can relate to that. They're just really, I can't say there were any real, at that point in time, there was nothing. It was kind of like another day in a big city. You're back to work. You look now, and so many of the things that we did, and Bob Walsh that I mentioned earlier, Captain Brannaman, Ed Smith, and one other person, we can't really remember who, we took one of the detonators off the ship, and I thought we were delivering it to Not-In-A-Weetalk, and I couldn't come up. I called it Japtan, and Captain Brannaman isn't quite sure remembering where we took it, but it was like 4 of us had our 45s, or we had weapons, loaded weapons, a footlocker-sized box that the 4 of us were carrying. Brannaman was up in front. He had his 45. We got off the LST, or a ship, a boat, better stated, at the end of a dock, and we walked down this dock probably 100, 150 foot, and it was like MPs and whatever Navy down there, and the vivid thing in my mind, it was like pushing a boat through the water. It was like, you're not coming in here, and it's like they just opened the door and we just walked right through. And I thought, whoa, they know it's loaded or what? You know, the guns, rifles or, you know, pistols. And at that time, that was kind of a memory to me, only because, not that I knew why, but more importantly, it was kind of like, Swabbies, get out of our way, you know, kind of that attitude. So that's, you know, kind of one of the memories.
So could you tell me a little bit more about the bomb? If you actually had a chance to see it again, would you?
Would I want to?
Yeah.
You know, I think the answer would probably be yes, to the extent it's like watching a good movie, and you say, oh, hey, I saw that movie, but it was good, and I'm going to watch it again. And when you watch it the second time, you look at different things. You watch it the third time, you look at something else. And I think if I had the opportunity to watch that bomb again, or any of those bombs, the thing that I think I would probably do would be when they said, you didn't have to tell us when it went off, and you knew it, and they said, you know, get up, turn around, and brace yourself or whatever. You watched the bomb, you watched this. I think what I would have liked to have done is taken about, you know, 5 or 10 steps forward, turn around and look at the people and look at their reactions, and really see, you know, what their attitudes were compared to mine. To me, it was, we were there, we were doing the thing, they knew the bomb was going to go off, everything we did was routine, okay, blah, blah, blah. Well, it wasn't routine, 100 times greater than they anticipated with this one bomb. So, you know, to look at it, it was beautiful. You know, it was truly a beautiful sight, you know, in terms of the mushroom and the light and the clouds and all of that. But it was, you know, you didn't realize, didn't realize what the strength, the impact, you know, what could have happened, what could come out of that. So, yeah, I would like to see him again, but looking at a whole different aspect of it. And that's true of the one in, the two that I'd like to see would be the thermonuclear one, the big one, and then the one here off the coast of California. That would have, those two, again, were distinct difference from each other, but I'd look at a whole different aspect of it.
Well, then we can definitely ask this question. If you could relive your experience, really military experience, but mainly the experience in Curtis again, what would you possibly do different?
The military experience on the ship?
We'll just call it military experience.
Total military experience, I would have stayed in. I would have stayed in. When I, for a lot of reasons, but let me go the other way. When I was ready to get out, and as true with probably all military people, they want you to re-enlist. And when I was offered to wanted to be re-enlist, they offered me a position of being a diplomat courier, or some connection into FBI, CIA some way, and I don't, you know the how, because you're still military, but you're working with them some way or another. At the time, I was 21, and I thought 21 plus another 20, let's see, that would be 23 years in the service, so let's see, 21 and 20, that's, my God, I'm old. You know, no way am I going to do this. I can always come back, but boy, once I sign up, I can't get out. That was then. Now, I look at it, and I have an older brother, had an older brother that's passed away, that he joined the Army at 15 and stayed in for 21, 22 years. And I look at his career after he got out, being this old man I was referring to, and it was like, probably did better than mine, you know. So I look back from that aspect of it and say I would have done it, and I think what I probably would have wanted to do if I were to stay in, and two mistakes I maybe made. One is I did not, you're automatically having to be in the reserves for a period of time. I think it was 2 years, maybe 3 years after you get out. You're on call for the reserves. You don't have to actively be involved in it. Number one, I think in hindsight, if I did get out and decide to stay out, I would have stayed in, joined the reserves. But on the other hand, if I had stayed in or rejoined, I think I would have definitely tried to get into the officer academy some way or another, because I think it's just one heck of a good career, military, be it Marine Corps or any of the others, for a lot of good reasons.
So Curtis-wise, would you have changed anything if you had to relive it, go through it?
No, I can't really say I would change any of it. It was a very good experience. You became, like our group, nominally there were 2 platoons at each, when we went on, 2 platoons went on, and one, few left, and always 2 platoons, if you will. And you became friends with a group. If there's 60 of you there, like anything, like going to high school or whatever, your neighborhood, you've got 3 or 4 special friends. They're all good friends, but special friends. And the same with the sailors, you end up becoming friends with a handful of Navy guys. And I think it would be, if I were to do it again, I think I would have expanded that relationship, because it's just a whole bunch of guys that you didn't have the opportunity to really enjoy. And you get out and you meet them, and meet them really in a sense of now knowing you. It's, man, I wish I'd clicked with you a little earlier. So as far as my duties, I think the friendship and relationships I would have liked to have enlarged on, but would I rather had different duties or whatever? No, I would like to, and again, hindsight, and we couldn't have done it even if we had wanted to, but it would have been good if we knew more of what you were doing and I'm doing and whatever. In other words, a clearer picture. But on the other hand, I can see the advantage from a security viewpoint, from a whole bunch of viewpoints of not letting every person know what the other person's doing. So it's, the answer is no, I wouldn't really change a whole bunch. It was a very enjoyable career.
So, did you have to, a lot of Curtis people have had issues with sickness. Did you have to deal with any kind of sickness? Or?
Unfortunately or fortunately, and the answer is no. I do not have any health problems whatsoever, to my knowledge. And I've asked myself that many a time, and we've discussed it between, when the Curtis group first got together as a reunion, there were about 5 or 6 of us that really pulled it together, and we were talking you know, I was calling over the United States. If I was looking for you in my albums, you'll find a lot of rosters. And when I left the ship or was about ready to get off, I took the roster and went down the names with almost everyone and said, what's your home address? You know, what's your phone number? And I put them all on there. So when I started help pulling this reunion thing together after, 45 years of not seeing guys, I'd be calling people maybe 150 calls to find someone. And, you know, you got to ask me the question again. I got sidetracked there, but.
Oh, just the sickness part.
Okay. So as we were talking to people, and still talk to people, and you be one that may have 5 or 6 different major health problems, and it was like, well, what did you do that I didn't do? And what I've concluded in 99% of the cases, I stood right by that locker, and you stood by a locker there, and the radiation was pouring out. You know, I was on the deck when the bomb went off. You were there on the deck when the bomb went off. And this person has major health problems, and I have none. And there are several of us that have, you know, fortunately, we have no health problems at this point in time. So I do have a son, my youngest son, has an 85% hearing loss. But is that to do with any of the, you know, thermonuclear radiation, you know, whatever? Who's to say, you know? My wife's doctor at the time, when he was born, attributed it to a minor touch of German measles. You know, was it or wasn't it? We don't know. And that's the battle we've been battling, is trying to get a handle on and trying to get some benefits, but more importantly, trying to really see if any of these causes or any of these health problems are direct causes of the radiations and what have you. So, but no, I've been very fortunate. God bless them.
All right, so last question. What was the highlight of this reunion?
Of this reunion?
Yeah, to you.
Well, everyone I've noticed, we have name tags, and if you start with the first reunion, and we had it here in San Diego, and I recall walking in again with all my albums and walking into the lobby, and there were about 10 or 12, 14 people standing there. I looked at them, I knew they were all Marines, all part of the Curtis group, only because they were there, you know. And I looked at him, and it's like, I wonder who he is. I wonder, you know, whatever. And you might recognize one out of, you know, the bunch. But what I found that day was if you said 3 or 4 sentences, and maybe you walk from here to the wall and back, I would recognize maybe 75% of them just by, you know, their reactions, their method of speaking or walking or whatever the case be. That was then. Now, I don't need name tags. I know everyone, I know their wives, you know whatever. So the highlight of all the reunions is this the closeness of the growth of what we are getting into, you know, where before, as I said earlier, you were good friends with 4 or 5 specific guys, you know, because one was, you know, lived across the river from me, as I mentioned, and so therefore that kind of drew you together. Well, what is happening now is we're all close. And so the highlight of all of these reunions is, you know, you sit down and it's BS time, you know, with everyone. And you don't even have to start the BS. I can tell you what a, you know, not mentioning names, but I can tell you what's going to come out of his mouth and what's going to come out of his, and I know where the, the highs and the lows and the whatever, which we all do, and it's one big, very happy, close family. That's all I can say.
Alrighty, well, that concludes the interview here.
In about 30 seconds, can you describe the emotion and psychological situation that you were in when you saw Bravo shot?
Well, I would say that it was like, oh my God, it was probably the one thing that really awakened me to what the heck was, I won't say what was happening, but the distinct bam difference. It wasn't the boom, it wasn't the mushroom. What it was is you sat there with your back to it, your head down, your goggles on, your eyes closed, your head in your arms, and it's just black, 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 and in a split second it is just overly bright, and I'm sure you've been told a zillion times about seeing the bones in your arms, and that was probably the